Welcome everybody. Hope you had a chance to see our translation directions and switch it to Slovak. Do we have a sound? Do we have a sound? Excellent. All right. Welcome everyone. Vitajte. I'm Zuzana Riemer Landres, a docent and educator at Holocaust Museum Los Angeles, the first Holocaust museum in the United States founded by survivors in 1961. Survivors who wanted to create a safe place to display their precious artifacts in perpetuity and to remember their family members and loved ones who had perished. Today, the museum continues to provide free Holocaust education to students from across Los Angeles, the United States, and the world, fulfilling the mission of our founding survivors to commemorate, educate, and inspire. Thank you for joining us for today's program, Trauma, Memory, and the Art of Survival, a conversation with Gabriella Karin. We are honored to have Gabriella here with us today, as well as Dr. Maroš Borsky, Agata Kerteszová, and Sister Lucia. This program is presented in partnership with the Jewish Culture Institute and the Trnava University Theological Faculty. I'm going to briefly introduce our speaker, our main speaker, Gabriella. Then I will introduce Dr. Maroš Borsky. We will go through our presentation by Gabriella Karin, and we'll follow towards the end by opportunity for everybody to ask questions. Hopefully we'll get to answer all of them. Hitler did not get my body, and he will not get my soul. Gabriella Karin has always explained that this motto is why she lives a happy life. Gabriella was born in 1930 in Bratislava, Czechoslovakia. Gabriella is the survivor of the Holocaust. She's dedicated to educating young people in schools at the Holocaust Museum Los Angeles, at the Museum of Tolerance. She has been invited to schools, synagogues, youth camps, you name it. Also to Sered Museum in Slovakia, Sered Holocaust Museum in Slovakia, that many of you are familiar with, and many other events to help students to understand the history of the Holocaust so it will never repeat again. She's also an accomplished artist, and she just published her new memoir, Trauma, Memory, and the Art of Survival. You can find more information about her work and about her newly published memoir at www.gabriellakarin.com. She's also one of the most inspiring people I know, and she didn't let COVID pandemic stop her or slow her down. We also have with us Dr. Maroš Borsky, director of the Jewish Culture Institute and the Jewish Community Museum in Bratislava, secretary of the Commission for Relations with Catholic Church of the Federation of Jewish Communities in Slovakia. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Also, please note that towards the end of our program, we will have some time at the end to for your questions. You can ask questions by typing in the question and answer box at the bottom of your Zoom window. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Gabriella Karin and Maroš Borsky. We also have two other guests, Sister Lucia from Bratislava and Ms. Agata Kerteszová. Welcome.
Zuzana, thank you for this introduction. Let me just speak briefly. I'm very happy to be here tonight. For those of you watching us in the US, I wish you good morning. It's a fantastic opportunity that we have through Zoom and online tools to be together here in this joint activity, a joint program with the Opening Door program, which we launched in 2017 here in Slovakia. We have always dreamt with my friend, Professor Lichner from the Theology Faculty of the Trnava University about creating a joint Jewish-Christian educational platform. We launched a program opening the doors at the faculty and in cooperation with the Jewish Cultural Institute. And last year, we completely changed the strategy and we went into online programming. And thanks to this, we are here also tonight. So, Gabriella, I'm very happy and honored to be here tonight. It was a unique meeting that we had in 2012 when we opened our Jewish Community Museum in the synagogue in Bratislava. And following our conversation and you have sent us a wonderful artwork that, so to say, depicts your experience in Bratislava. We're going to speak about this later this evening. So thank you again, and I wish to all our viewers a pleasant evening and pleasant morning.
Thank you, everyone. I think we're ready for you, Gabriella.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Let me put my screen on. I was born in Czechoslovakia. Before the war, we lived in a peaceful, democratic country. It changed when the World War II started. My parents owned a small delicatessen store in Bratislava. The store was located next to the police station, and because of the location, they knew every policeman. When the deportation started, my mother joined the resistance. Her contact to the resistance was Mr. Eckstein, Jonas Eckstein. I remember him because he came every day to get the list of the people that one of the policemen gave to my mother. I have no idea if he was paid for it or not. I just know that there was a list, and then they divided the list between themselves. My mother took me with her many, many times, and together we went to warn people. And I will never forget until I leave one scene in front of my eyes when we went to my mother's first cousin. And we told them that tonight, for sure, they will take you away. On the list was her husband, her old mother, their 4-year-old little boy, my second cousin. And they started to cry. And they told us, we have nowhere to go. We already went from one place to another. Hopefully we will work and survive. We never saw them again. Let me tell you a little bit about what the Holocaust was. 6 million Jewish people were murdered, alongside also 5 million non-Jewish people, like homosexuals, handicapped, gypsies, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Christians who were politically against the Hitler regime. 11 million people were murdered from between 1941 and 1945 was the biggest killing. That means daily 7,500 people were murdered every day for 4 years. I made a sculpture. I'm a sculptor. I make my feelings into the sculptures. You see this one? This represents the 11 million people. The falling leaves on the columns represent the Jewish people, because a falling leaf from a tree is not alive anymore. And I have also screaming faces showing the Jewish people before the death in the gas chambers. And between the columns, I have the handicapped, the courageous resistors, Christians who were politically against the Hitler regime, Jehovah's Witnesses, gypsies, and homosexuals. So I'm from Slovakia, where about 90,000 Jewish people lived. In 1942 was the biggest deportation in Slovakia. 60,000 Jewish people were deported. From 60,000, 230 people returned. Statistically, it means from 1,000 people, 4 people survived. Not the numbers. That's me, about 6-year-old, a very happy child, always laughing and smiling. Here I am about 11. Nobody could make me smile. Hard times of the Holocaust. It's my parents' store. In the middle is my dad. And on the right, my mom with me. This is my 10-year-old birthday party. I'm on the far right. These are my friends. I'm the only one who survived. I lost all of them. This is my mom, and this is Jonas Eckstein, the contact to the resistance. Mr. Eckstein was acknowledged by Bnebrit as a mensch. Unfortunately, I wasn't able so far find somebody who was still alive, who could witness my mom. I was approached by Bnebrit in Jerusalem, and they told me, I need just one witness. But it's, I think, too late to find somebody alive who could know about what they did together. I was put into a convent, Ursuline. I was but 11-year-old. I had papers, false papers, that I am Christian. So the nuns were covered. I have no idea who knew, but I'm sure that the main nun knew about that I am not Christian. Sister Angelica was my teacher. I didn't have her picture, but her face was engraved in my mind. About 2 years ago, USC Shoah Foundation took me to Bratislava, and they filmed me everywhere where I was during the Holocaust. So we went to the convent, and the archivist showed me thousands of pictures and said to me, find yourself. I couldn't. I probably was avoiding to be photographed between all the light fair hair children, I probably would have stand out too much. So I kind of know that I was trying not to be in front. And so I didn't find myself, but I saw Sister Angelica and I got so excited. And I just said, oh, that's Sister Angelica, it's my teacher. She was so nice to me. I really have very good thoughts about her always. And the nun, the archivist, had no idea. She was a young person. She went to her notes and she said, you are right. This is Sister Angelica. So I got her picture. And this sculpture shows the nuns hiding. To my knowledge at this time, 3 Jewish girls. It was me and 2 sisters. There might have been more, but I found out later that the nuns were hiding more people, but I just found it after war. So I went 3 years to the convent. The first year, I was also in the boarding house there. A year later, my mother came and I was crying myself to sleep every night. I was so worried what's happening with my parents, with my grandma, whom I loved so much. And then my mother came a year later and she saw my cried out eyes, my skinny face. She decided for night she will take me with her, and in morning I will try to come to school. And this is what I did next 2 years. My mother was so well informed. She knew that Germany will occupy Slovakia. Actually, she was the one person who was smuggled to Hungary to tell the Jewish committees that Germany will come and occupy Hungary. And they didn't believe it. They laughed in her face. She came back. She was so upset that nobody believed her. 3 days later, Germany occupied Hungary. She knew also that Slovakia will be occupied. There was the uprising, partisan uprising in Slovakia, and Germans, with the excuse that Slovak cannot handle it enough, they occupied Slovakia. And first thing on the agenda was to search for the hidden Jewish people. And they went from house to house, from apartment to apartment. And we were hidden by KAROL BLANAR, who had it in his heart to hide 8 people, risk his life for us. After liberation, KAROL BLANAR wrote a couple of articles against communism, and when the communists occupied Slovakia, he had to leave the country. We got a word, he made it over the border, but then we lost track. Meantime, I became an adult and I wanted to thank him thank him for the life he gave to me, risking his own life. And he got the certificate of honor from Yad Vashem as the righteous person among the nations. And also his parents received this award because they were hiding my grandmother in Malženice. I was looking for him all my adult life. I looked through every phone book I could put my hands on. I contacted organizations and I couldn't find him. But 15 years ago, I got my first computer. I was so excited. The first thing that I did, I put KAROL BLANAR's name in it. I Googled him. He didn't come up. Then I remember he had a younger brother, Vincent BLANAR. I put his name in and he came up. Vincent BLANAR, university professor, a linguist. His name was there, his phone number, his address. I could hardly believe my eyes. I did not look if it's midnight in Slovakia or what. I got so excited. I went to the phone and I called, and Vincent picked up his phone. And I tried to introduce myself, and he told me, I remember you. Oh, okay. Just tell me where is KAROL. Well, KAROL lived in United States, in Dublin, Ohio. He got married, no children, but he died in 1980. Here I was, years and years later, missing the opportunity to thank him for the life he gave me. And I asked him, where is he buried? The only thing I can do for him to visit his grave. And he had no idea. This time, the communist occupied countries and the free world could not communicate. So he did not know. I called up every cemetery around Dublin, Ohio, and I did not find him. One day I was speaking Holocaust Museum, Los Angeles, and a gentleman approached me and said, I'm very good finding people like that. Just give me some details. So I gave him everything I know, and he found him the next day in Columbus, Ohio, in an unmarked grave. I got very upset. A person who received this certificate of honor as a righteous person among the nations did not have his name on his grave. I called the cemetery and I asked them, please look up what happened. 35 years later, looking through their books, they told me nobody was there when they buried him, only the priest. Nobody paid. That's it. I say, no, that's not it. I'm ordering a marker right now, and I want to have written on it, righteous person among the nations. And then they were putting the marker in the earth. I went there with my grandson, he with a video camera. And if you want to hear my goodbye speech to KAROL BLANAR, go on my website, GabriellaKarin.com, and you can find it there, between other things. I want to explain you about these two houses. It's on Dunajska Street. The house on the right is the house of Slovenská Liga. It's about a 5-story house. We were on the third floor, hidden by KAROL BLANAR. And in the bylaws of the house that was built in 1935 was written, no Jew can live in this house. And this is the only house when the German went from house to house, from apartment to apartment. They never entered. And it was across the street of the Hlinková Gada Slovak Gestapo. I saw many things. I saw the two girls from the convent running on the street, and the convent was just 5 minutes walking from this place. They were caught in front of my eyes and pulled into the headquarters. Afterward, I found out the German, when they went from house to house, they went to the convent too. And they were screaming on the nuns, you are hiding Jews here. And they let out the two girls, or maybe more, I don't know. And I saw the two girls, two sisters, running on the street, being pulled into headquarters. I never saw them again. And this is my sculpture about our hiding. You see the German boots marching in front of us. And there is my mother and my father. And I was the only child to my parents. My aunt, two uncles, and two friends of my parents. We were there 8 people for 9 months. And very long months. And if you can imagine yourself sitting on your chair for 9 months, not be able to move around and not be able to speak. And the only thing what I could do is to read. And KAROL BLANAR brought me books to read. He couldn't bring me books for a young girl. I was 13 at this time. Everybody was watched. He brought me history books, heavy books to read for a 13-year-old child. Dostoevsky, Tolstoy. And I was reading whatever I got into my hands. And guess what? After liberation, I made a test and I jumped a grade. I was the youngest in the class. I went to, I will tell it in Slovak, odborná škola pre ženské povolenie. I graduated when I was 17. I was the youngest graduate. All my schoolmates were 20, 21-year-old. I got a license as a designer. I could open a shop. I got married. I was 17. And we, together with my husband, went to live in Israel, where we lived for 10 years. And I came to live in Los Angeles. Meantime, we had a 2-year-old little boy. And I lived in Los Angeles since then. And I want to tell you something. Everything can be taken away from you. Even the clothes you wear, everything. But nobody can take away from you but you have in your head. Put good stuff in it. It's yours until you leave. Our last possessions. First, they took away from us our citizenship. And then they took away from us our jobs, and then our apartments. And then they took people to the camp. And they arrived by the train. The first thing what they took away was the last thing from home, the small luggage. 12 windows to the unforgettable past. The first window shows the Shevastika coming, but the world was silent. Kristallnacht, November 9, 1938, all over Germany and Austria, they were burning Jewish synagogues. Hundreds of them burned to ground, thousands put on fire. And they started to take Jewish men to camp. This was the beginning of Holocaust, 9 months before the World War II started. And there was a window of opportunity to let children out, children from age 2 to age 17. But the world did not open their gates to let them in. The only place was England, and they saved 10,000 children. And I was going from museum to museum here in United States, and I did not see a word about it. And it bothered me. And I thought I can do something about it. And I did. I made a sculpture. It's 15 feet. I have 64 trains. In the window of the trains, I have real photographs of the children who were on the trains. I have about 600 faces. Michelle Gold, who is the board chair of Holocaust Museum, Los Angeles, I'm showing it too.
If I may, I'd like to make just a short interruption, Gabriella.
Sure.
Because we have also special guests joining us tonight from Bratislava, and that's Sister Lucia and Agata Kerteszová. And Agata, you have had many students that you teach your story and you teach about the Holocaust. But you also had some students in Slovakia. And I would say Agata is one of them. She attended the very same school where you were hidden. That's a gymnasium of St. Ursula. I want to remind our dear guests from the US that gymnasium is not a gym. It is a secondary educational institution in Central Europe. It's one of our partners in the program Jewish Heritage of Bratislava that our museum runs. And these kids from these schools attend a very special seminar that we dedicate to Jewish history and also Holocaust in Bratislava, and Agata was one of them. And this inspired her to be in touch with you and to learn more about your story. And that's why I invited her together with Sister Lucia so they can share with us how your story inspires people that teach and study at the convent today.
Dear Gabriella, we would like to give you really warm greetings from all the sisters of the Ursuline convent in Bratislava. We are happy to see that your story is alive among us and among our students. One of our former students, Agata, would like to express the way she sees this.
Yes. Hello. Good morning. I would like to say that I was 16 years old when I wrote this research work about the heroic act of Ursuline sisters of saving all of these children. And as the time goes by, I can see how enriching it was for me to listen to this story face to face. And mostly this work enlarged in me my view on trust. The trust Ursulines gave into those children continues in the life work of Gabriella Karin, as well as the trust of my history teacher to help me write it down. And I would only like to say that trust is shareable, is vibrant, and in this case, it was also life-giving.
Really, history is a great teacher and great educator of the new generation. Thank you, Gabriella, for your unforgettable relationship with the Ursuline sisters. Your artwork, Rescuers, tell us about your deep gratitude to them, and it also reveals their love of you and of the other people whom they served and helped during that difficult time. It is a great encouragement and message for us that the Ursuline sisters, for us, the Ursuline sisters and the students in our schools of today. Thank you for being a precious witness for those of us who continue and transmit the hope of those hidden heroes, and you are one of them now. May God bless you, Gabriella. Thank you.
Thank you for your nice words. I think with Miss Agata, we met when I was, right? When I was
Yes, yes.
when they filmed me.
Yes. It was really precious for me to meet you, that I met the person that I wrote about before. Yeah.
I saw your face. I thought, this is the lady I met.
I remember you as well.
If I may, Miss Agata, it was interesting for me to hear what you mentioned, that it's a question of trust. Trust you were inspired by and trust you noticed in other people's action. Can you say more if you've had a chance to meet other survivors if in person? And what do you think that are, in your mind, other attributes that you would assign to upstanders, to people who are willing and capable of taking that risk, having the trust and taking that risk? What do you think?
Yes, through this research work, I have also met Thomas Frankl, and he was a son of a survivor of Holocaust. And it was like 4 or 5 years ago, and he still calls me, like on Christmas and on Easter. We are still in contact, and I would like to say that he is really down to earth, and he really always asks me, how am I doing? What about my studies? So yes, the down to earth face of these people I really admire. So yes, they stay between us and they are willing to talk about their experience, even though they are hard to talk about, and they want to share what happened to them, not to be repeated. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I will continue now.
Gabriella?
Yes.
I wish we would have more time for your presentation. You usually have so much to say, but our time is limited. And if you're okay with that, we would now go to questions from our audience. I'm sure we'll answer a lot of what you had prepared for us. I have one quote, one sentence for all of us, and I'm sure many of you are familiar, but just something to lead us towards our questions. Elie Wiesel: The late Holocaust survivor and Nobel Peace Prize laureate Elie Wiesel once said, "The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference." Wiesel said that to the indifferent person, his or her neighbor are of no consequence. Their hidden or even visible anguish is of no interest. Indifference reduces the other to an abstraction. And with that, I would like to lead us to our audience, hopefully asking a lot of questions and sharing your thoughts. Please enter them in the question and answer corner. You can see it on the bottom of the screen.
I would have one question I'd like to ask Gabriella. From our friend Martin Schmock, who is not here today with us here, who was involved or organized the filming of your story in Bratislava. I know that you entered after many, many years, and it was a very, very, so to say, unprepared, it was all of a sudden decision. You entered this apartment in the Slovenska Liga house, the place you were hiding for months. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yes, it was really amazing because each time I was in Slovakia, I tried to go to the place where I was hidden. It became a security building. Somehow I managed to get in, or somebody let me, or I tried to ring other places. Anyhow, I got in. But I came to the door, I rang the bell, and nobody opened. Was disappointed all these years. We went together now with the crew, with all the cameras, with the whole 7 people, and with the director, Mr. Schmack. We also got in. He pushed all the buttons, somebody opened. We went up, rang the bell, and a lady opened. I was shocked. I was really, I saw the place, and we explained her that we would like to film it. And she said, I don't own it, my son, I have to ask. So she calls him, and he said, let them in, go ahead. So when it first time after 70 years, you know, everything was there like I remembered. We went to the rooms, bathrooms, and then we went over the kitchen. And this I didn't remember too much. Probably I wasn't too much there. And as I was going, suddenly I remembered something that I didn't remember all these years. Never thought about it. There was a small balcony. The whole thing was like 1 yard by 1 yard, maybe 1 meter, 1 meter. And it was covered half. I got very sick the last months when we were in hiding. The underground doctor came to see me, and he told my parents, more than 2 months, she won't be alive. When you cannot close up a 13-year-old child and expect them to thrive without sunshine, without fresh air. So what we did the last month, we put a little blanket on the bottom of this little patio, and I crawled in because the side was closed about a yard. So nobody could see me from outside. And I lay there for an hour to have some fresh air. And I never thought about it. I blanked it out. So that was my experience in the apartment. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you. Our friend Martin Schmock, the documentary filmmaker, also told us when he was sharing his experiences about you, Gabriella, and about his filming, he mentioned that the accuracy and the detail with which you remembered things were astonishing for him. It was incredible to see how well you remembered things in such a detail after 60 years or more. I see we have questions coming in. We have lots of greetings. We have greetings, warm greetings from Banska Bystrica. We have also questions coming from Karen Kablitz. I see she's asking, she's also an artist. She's asking about, Gabriella, what was your path to becoming an artist, expressing your experiences through your sculptures? And we have one more question that's related. We're going to combine them. Gabriella, is the making of each piece therapeutic for you? If you can answer those questions.
You can say it's therapeutic, but it harms me. I cannot stop doing things about Holocaust. I finished one, I start another one. It's always something that comes to my mind. Oh, I didn't do about it. I didn't do this yet. And I have so many today. My house is full with walls and stands. And I wanted to remark something that Mr. Schmock mentioned, that I remembered things. I was in Auschwitz on 75th anniversary, and I was there with my grandson. President Lauder was hosting us. And so I had chance with my grandson, who is 30-year-old, speaking a lot, and he asked me questions, details about the life, not only about Holocaust, also about my parents and siblings and the whole family. And he told me, you know, you remember everything in smallest detail. You should write a book. Me? Book? I really didn't take him seriously. When the pandemic started, I remember this. And the first day I started to write. And I cannot see it now. Can you see it? That's my book, Trauma, Memories, and
the art of survival.
Okay, this is the book. If you, it's in English. My cousin is translating it to Czech. She lives in Czech Republic in Moravská Ostrava, and she's really finished with the book. She just needs some subtitles still for the photographs, and it's done. So I don't know if I will have it printed or not yet, but if there is interest in it, yes, I would like to have it done. And Slovak or Czech.
Can I just add something to that? During the pandemic, COVID pandemic that we have all experienced heavily, everybody was complaining, everybody was having a hard time one way or another. When you ask Gabriella how she is, what she's up to, she was writing a book every day, full time, full hours, writing a book for 8 hours a day. I have to say you produced it in 3 months. Am I right?
2 months.
2 months, pardon me. So I think that's a testimony.
I couldn't stop.
You're unstoppable. And I think you're unstoppable in your sharing of your story, as well as creating your art and your narrative. We have more questions coming.
We have a question here. When you were 11 and you were in hiding, what helped you? What kept you going?
You know, I was reading all these history books, and I found out that every war is beginning and an end. This will end too. I hope that I will have a life to live.
And I have one more question I'd like to ask. You were born in Bratislava. Are there any other connecting addresses or connecting points for you in the city?
What do you mean?
I mean, locations. Is there any other places? So I remember your family or your mother had a delicatessen shop opposite the police station with 2 Lions police station.
Next to it.
Next to it.
Next to it, yeah, on the same side.
Did you attend school before you went to the convent, or was it?
Oh, it was from 1930. They opened the shop, my parents. They moved from Nitra to Bratislava. First year they did something else, some not successful egg business because they didn't know too much and all the eggs got rotten. So it wasn't successful. Then they opened the delicatessen store. Oh, what else?
Where did you live before the war?
What did I?
Where did you live? Do you remember the address?
Yes, Špitalská 44 was the store, and we lived in Cintorinská 2. Very close, actually. Just few streets behind the store. I visited there, but I couldn't get in. There is kind of like an entrance, and they put a gate now on it. So I tried to ring the bell, nobody opened. Odd story.
Very vivid memories. We have another interesting question coming from Ms. Durieva. Gabriella, have you ever met anyone from Slovakia after the war who was on the other side? Someone who was collaborating during the fascist state? Could you answer?
I don't understand.
She's asking if you have ever met anybody in Slovakia after the war who was on the other side. I mean, as we know, Slovakia was a collaborative state. So besides meeting good people in your life, upstanders, people who were willing to hide you and help your family, have you ever met anybody after the war who was on the other side, collaborator? And how was your experience?
I personally did not meet, or I didn't know.
Right.
I was still a kid, you know. I was 14 when I got liberated. So
many of our audiences, I'm sure, having so many people coming from Slovakia, from Czech Republic as well, they are identifying with your story. They are relating to your story, since many of their families, family members either perished or survived in somehow similar circumstances. Do we have more questions coming? Tell us a little bit. A couple of years ago, you had a visit. At Sereď Holocaust Museum, Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and what were your impressions from the visit? You also visited, met students, local students from, I believe, local high school. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes. Well, one of the high schools was, I really don't know exactly where it was. It was somewhere close to Dunajská Streda, somewhere there. Actually, the students did speak Hungarian also, spoke English because they learned English. And in Sered, I spoke Slovak, actually. And the director, Mr. Korčok, I met him a few times. I think I spoke a couple of times there in Sered. After we met first time, each time I went to Slovakia, I was speaking. So hopefully, if this will be over, all this pandemic, that I will come again. I promised my grandson to take him. He was there, but he was still a young kid. He was maybe 16 then. We went with the whole family. We had a reunion in Dunajská Streda.
I have one question, probably the last one for tonight. And it's a little bit provocative, but just allow me to give you this question. Some people in Slovakia, but I believe also elsewhere, from time to time on Facebook, compare restrictions due to the COVID to those during the Holocaust. What do you think about such a comparison?
How can you compare eggs to oranges? Holocaust cannot be compared to anything. It was the most vicious killing of people. Nothing in history was like that. When they made crematorium and gas chambers to kill people. Children. About 1.5 million children were murdered. Innocent children. Plus, pandemic. And we are on it all, everybody. And that means freedom. No exception. You know, we are all on it. And I want to tell you something. It doesn't matter what color eyes you have, what color hair you have, what color skin you have. We are all the same people. And we don't have to love everybody, but respect. Respect every person on this earth. We all have the right to be here. No exceptions. Together, we can make a better world. One by one, baby steps. And together, we will change the world. Thank you for participating.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabriella, so much for your thoughtful answers. Thank you to Sister Lucia and Agata for participating. Thank you, everybody who joined us today. We wish we would have more time available, but I'm sure there will be many, many more opportunities to learn together, to inspire one another, and perhaps to even see Gabriella in Slovakia sometime soon when pandemic is over. On behalf of the Holocaust Museum LA, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you, Maroš Borsky and the Jewish Culture Institute and the Trnava University Theological Faculty for your partnership. We would also like to thank Agata Kerteszová and Sister Lucia. And before we sign off, I want to invite everybody to join us on Tuesday, if you have a chance, May 18, Tuesday at 5 p.m. For those of you who are on Central European time, it might be a little bit too late. How we got here from the good war to the storming of the Capitol, a conversation with Stephen Ross and former Congressperson Mel Levine about the historical roots of the Capitol siege in a post-war white supremacy. It's the same address, and you can register at www.holocaustmuseumla.org. And with that, we're going to conclude. Thank you everyone for participating, and hope to see each other again in peace and inspiration.
Let me please add a few more words. I want to thank you, Gabriella, for being with us here tonight, with us in Slovakia. And I believe your story was very inspiring for us and bringing us a lot of energy that you have. And I want to thank Sister Lucia and Agata for joining us. And I want to also thank two special people who were involved in preparation of this program. And that's Roman Gajdoš, who has been translating this program tonight into Slovak. And I also want to thank Zuzana for being moderator of this talk tonight. And obviously, I want to thank Holocaust Museum in Los Angeles for being our partner in this unique evening program. Thank you very much, and look forward to some other special event that we will prepare together.
Thank you, everyone.